So now we're going to move to the topic of energy, and we're going to welcome on stage Meglena Antonova. Meglena, please. Meglena is an energy campaigner at Greenpeace in their Central and Eastern Europe branch, and she'll be talking about energy citizens, how to disrupt the system by producing your own energy. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. It's a great honor for me to be here because usually as environmental organization, we're not very often present at these kind of events. So for me, it's also I'm a little bit nervous to be talking in front of so many people that work in a very different sphere than what I'm used to as an audience. So bear with me if some of the things I'm talking about are not super obvious to you. But yeah, so what I would like to talk about today is, so the climate crisis that we're at the moment. I'm not going to argue, maybe in the audience they're not everybody agrees that we are experiencing climate change, but I'm going to start from a base that we agree that the climate is changing and it's a climate crisis caused by human activity. So basically what scientists are saying is that it's humans that are causing this climate change, and it's energy, the production of energy, that is the main source of emissions that are causing this change. And we have a very small window of opportunity to act in order to be able to go away from this state of climate emergency, a climate crisis, and change the state in a way that we don't increase the temperature to such an extent that we cannot go back from this state. And there are different projections that the scientists are making, but the latest that was made was last year, and where they said that we have basically approximately less than 12 years to act in order to solve the climate crisis. So what we need in order to change this is to figure out what's the problem, why we're not taking action in this, because we have known about this climate change for many years. And what we see as a problem is that people are not taking responsibility. We know that approximately 100 of the most powerful companies in the world are responsible for 70% of the global emissions, but they're not acting apparently unless they're really pushed by it. We also know when it comes to countries, you also probably, you can imagine which are the countries that are the most responsible for emissions. For the past 2 years, 2017 and 2018, emissions have continued to increase. And in 2018, we have experienced the all-time high of emissions that we have seen so far. And probably if we don't act, this trend is going to continue. So countries like India, the United States, China, they're the biggest emitters. The European Union, which we're part of, also a very big emitter, but for the last year they have been at a stall, but that's not also a good thing, because for the years before that they have been reducing emissions, and all of a sudden they're stopping to reduce emissions, so there's another problem. So what we see as an opportunity is that it's actually people that need to take responsibility and do something within what is possible for them to do to make a change in this system. So what people can do is basically step up if they feel empowered enough to take action and make changes to first to their habits, but also this would persuade politicians to also make change. So what is needed for them to be empowered, that they need to be confident enough to act, to see an opportunity for them to act. So we don't see a problem with technology, that there's a missing technical developments that can help us solve the problem with climate change. We don't see a problem with money, because we have the public budget, the private budgets to do that. We see a problem that there needs to be a change in our minds to be able to act, to change definitions. And a lot of people have been acting already. There has been a global movement from all kinds of generations. Those are the climate grannies, the Swiss grannies that are taking the Swiss government to court for not acting on climate change. Those are also the youth movements on the other side of the generation that are protesting and again asking their governments to take action. But basically we need much more people than people that have already joined the movement to be participating, because really this change that needs to be made is not only a change in terms of, I don't know, not using a plastic cup when you buy coffee or something like that. We actually need to change the way we perceive a lot of things we do in our everyday lives. And these are some examples of what we need to change in the energy system. So basically from ownership, from just being owners, let's say, of the energy grid, we need to start thinking about who has access to be able to, for example, produce energy. From just producing energy and consuming it, we need to think about how this is a service that companies provide and we are the producers of this energy. From being a system that is centralized, where we have very big producers like power plants, how to move it to like coal power plants, nuclear power plants, how to move it to a distributed system where each and every one of us is a small producer of energy, how energy is not perceived as just a commodity that we buy as passive consumers, but it's actually a right that we have access to produce this energy. And how the people involved in this production are not just the experts, the energy experts, the big companies that know how it's done, but it's everybody in society that participates in this change. So what I mentioned is, if in order for if people would like to become part of this system, they need to be empowered to be part of this system, and they need the confidence, the control, and to claim their right to be part of this by this system. And basically, if they are empowered, it's pretty obvious that they can make this energy transition. And research has shown that, for example, in Europe, this is a projection for 2050, how many people can be energy producers. At the moment, it's just 1 million people that produce energy in the European Union, and this has a lot of potential to increase by the middle of this decade. People, for example, in Spain have been asked whether they would like to become part of this energy transition, and it's 30% that they have answered that they would like to be part of it. And for example, one of the reasons is that they say that they want to stop being robbed in their energy bills by big utilities, or that they feel deleted from any energy transition. So I'm sure that in countries like Bulgaria, this percentage might even be bigger based on this kind of responses. Like, people don't really like utilities, I feel, in countries like ours. So another thing, being empowered is one thing, and technically whether it's possible. What would make people feel that they would like to participate is there's another issue with being able to produce your own energy. It's obvious that you cannot create your own nuclear power plant in your backyard. Basically, you need to produce energy from renewable sources. So people feel comfortable to be energy citizens because that will guarantee that they don't have a negative impact on the environment. Another thing that will give them the confidence to participate in this system is that they get a fair price for what they're producing, and or for what they're consuming. So it's on both sides. On the one hand, producers, since they're contributing to the system, they'll be getting this price for the electricity they're getting, but also on the other side, people that will be consuming this energy would be able to also receive a fair price for the service they're receiving. There will be less power abuse within this system, and there will also be a sense of collaboration, because when more people join this system, it would be possible that it's operated in cooperatives, and people would be able to exchange this energy. And that's one example from our colleagues from Greece, where the so-called virtual net metering is allowed, where people are able to produce energy somewhere else. For example, they don't have a rooftop to place a solar panel, but they're able to invest in a solar farm somewhere else and benefit from the energy that is being produced. For example, this example from Greece is a municipal project where a solar installation has been placed on a building that is owned by the municipality but doesn't need so much energy, and the energy is then used for a place that they take care of children without, for foster without care. So, and another example I want to give to be a little bit more practical, that's an example of a CoEnergy Cooperative in Germany where a football fan club decided that they need to build a new shed for the benches where the football fans are sitting on their local games. And instead of just building a simple shed, they decided that they want to make it energy cooperative. And what they put is that, like, if you can see over here, they put solar panels on the shed, and everybody from the fans invested in their in this project. And the interesting thing, in my opinion, is that as a return, the people that invested from the fan club can choose whether they would like some sort of financial support back from what they invested, but they can also get seasonal tickets for the football games or sausages at the game. So it's something that they can choose. So it's this system where people are sharing the energy and the system is decentralized basically allows people to get different kind of benefits of what they're participating. So that's basically it. I hope like the main message that I actually would like to address is that we need a lot of people to join this movement, and there is time to act. We're not doomed or anything at the moment, but it's urgent that we challenge the rules that we have at the moment when it comes to energy production, and all these technologies that were mentioned, including blockchain, can have a great role to play in this development and transition that we move towards a decentralized system. So thank you.
This is very, very interesting. So I have lots of questions, but I want to give the audience an opportunity to ask. We have a hand raised over there, if we could get a microphone there. And then, sir, you're next. You had your hand raised, right? Undecided, okay.
Thanks, Meglena. It was interesting very much. Previous year, on the first edition of the conference, our fourth topic was called Life of the Grid. And my opinion and my impression from all that I've heard was that for individual players, it is, at that time, still too expensive to invest in alternative energy sources and appliances, because actually my childish idea was to make the best combination. You invest in eco-friendly environment, in alternative energy sources, and then you consume your energy, you mine with the rest, and perhaps if you have more excess, you sell to the grid. But it was actually too expensive. And can you say to us, is there okay, it's expensive in a country like ours, where we have relative good coverage of distribution networks, although they are of these monopoly players, which I am actually more or less against. but they are delivering service at a low cost, and most of the families can live with this service. As far as they are reliable, because in some spaces in Bulgaria, they are not getting a reliable source all the time. They have ups and downs, which damages their equipment, but that's another topic. So, is there a change in the prices? So, is it doable, for single families to invest and to build their home appliances?
So is this only for the rich, or can any of us
or corporations
do this at home? Yeah.
So I would start with first a little bit of background. The reason why in Bulgaria it's more expensive to produce renewable energy is because the price of electricity is much lower than in other countries. And that's because it's very highly subsidized by the government, by us with public money. But the problem for me is that these subsidies, they go to the dirty energies, because it's the coal power plants, the nuclear power plants that get this subsidy in order to be able to sell us this cheap energy. In addition to the fact that they're also built in the 50s, 70s, so I'm not going to talk about how they produce energy and so on. So that's one thing. And we're moving towards a market where this is becoming a problem, so many subsidies. So this would mean that electricity prices will go higher. And that would make renewables even more like a better choice for us, because it will let us produce our own energy without being able to, without the need to pay for electricity. So yes, it's true that in other countries where renewables, where electricity is more expensive, let's say in Western Europe, having renewables is a much better investment. But in Bulgaria also it's becoming a very good solution to, instead of, let's say, put your 5,000 leva in a bank on a deposit that you basically get no return to it. Instead of that, you actually invest it in something like that you maybe get a small return, but in the long term, you're actually becoming more energy efficient and more independent. And a last thing, in the example I gave to Greece, it's actually, Greece is not in a very good financial situation, as you all know, and the government has taken action to make production of renewable energy as a project called something like social solar. So to think about those people that are disadvantaged, and instead of give them subsidies for dirty energy, actually give them subsidies for renewable energy. So it could be a political decision, like in countries like Bulgaria, where the so-called energy poor households receive money to buy coal or to buy wood. Instead, they might be able to get money to produce energy in a renewable way, and actually take them out of the situation of poverty instead of keeping them in the same circle. So it's possible if there is a will to do that.
So we need political action by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Actually, I'm not sure whether it's a question or a statement, but it's on top of what has been said so far. A friend of mine wanted to make his own energy for his own fabric, and he's been going on for a year fighting with distribution or whatever. They say we don't want to accept it, where in the constitution or somewhere in the law is written that they should not even ask any question. And it's in Bulgaria it's really made hard. So how do you want to make it, how do you want to make people join this revolution when there is no voluntary? And we see that from the government perspective, there is also no long-term solution for renewables. When I've heard, it might be wrong, but we are aiming to use trees as renewables instead of thinking of other existing solutions, which could actually maybe help our economy and so forth and so on. No? I mean, what can you say from your perspective that you've seen how our government is acting? I speak concretely about Bulgaria. I mean, and my friend is not the only one. He found other people, and because he's really like a tough guy, he's been fighting for a year, and now he's slowly getting the deal. But for a year, he was having all equipment and just waiting to be installed because he was not allowed to install it in his own land. Like this is, can you say something or just comment?
I think this is again about the political
Yes.
action. How do we get the state to do what it's supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly, and I congratulate your friend. I think he needs to get in touch with us to tell his story because it's super difficult because people, the system would not let us be part of it so easily because what we're doing is we're taking away the business of utilities, of big producers. They have to change the way they're operating at the moment, and that's hard for these monopolies to be changed in such a way. And that's why they're resisting a lot to this change. And they're trying to come up with all kinds of administrative burdens in order for people not to be able to be part of the system. And it's true in Bulgaria, we don't have the perfect legislation, but if there are more people that are asking for this to change, I certainly believe the politicians wouldn't be able to close their eyes and ears to what people would like as a way of society to operate. So we need more people like your friend to be asking this to change so that eventually it becomes easier.
Well, I'm gonna add something that what I heard is many people invested when this was like a booming European project, and many people said, okay, this is going to be something on the long run, it's gonna pay off some bills and it's gonna be great. But then something in our country again changed, and then those people are not even making enough money to cover for the expense. So again, there is no political will to subsidize those people to make it happen. So maybe we should really push on this direction. I mean, thank you for pushing, I believe.
Thank you. Let's give Meglena a round of applause.